Welcome, everyone, to Dolls of Our Lives. This is the podcast where we're reliving the American Girl series book by book, except here on Patreon, where we're doing whatever we want or you tell us that you want. I'm Mary.
I'm Allison. I am also an official attaché to Genovia.
What a huge honor to have an international member of diplomacy with us. Are you prepared to kick things off by singing the Genovian national anthem?
I could, I will not. So, this role kind of came as a surprise to me after I was crowned at the cultural diversity dance. But Megan Patricia Cabot told me that this is my life now. So,
not the cultural diversity dance. Oh my God. So much. There's so much with we should say before we go further, we're here to discuss Meg Cabot's The Princess Diaries, but we have also watched the movie with all of you, some of you.
With a lot of you. It was wonderful. We had a watch along and we're kind of getting into a fun groove with a lot of people. We had some really good feedback when we asked people, like, what do you want? How do you want to participate in this community? And for some people, Discord is everything. Some people are not on Discord. So it's like people are interacting in different ways. But we love that all of you tune in to listen and hear us either talk about the book or, do whatever it is that makes sense for you as a patron.
Exactly. And should we give a preview of what's coming up over the next few months?
Yeah, I would love to. So we're talking today about the Princess Diaries. And if you're listening to this, sadly, our group watch of that happened in the past, but we're moving on at breakneck speed to the internet next. And so you'll want to get out your AOL CD-ROMs. We are covering a book called Everything I Need, I Get From You. And what is our other bonus for February 2023?
I am so excited about this. We're having a PowerPoint party and the theme is fandom dramas. So kind of picking up on the theme of the book that we're reading, which in many ways I think explores how One Direction invented the internet or like fan culture on the internet as we know it today, which I'm really excited to read. I've not read it yet, but I'm really excited to read it with everyone next month. We want to hear from you. Like, we had an amazing PowerPoint party on Taylor Swift a couple months ago now, and so many of you came, and we had so many great applications of people who wanted to present. And just if you're new to this concept, a PowerPoint party is literally like all of us get on Zoom together. Some people apply in advance to give a little presentation. So usually what we say is, like, pitch us a topic, and we'll give you 3 to 5 minutes to show us a PowerPoint about your topic. And it could be like you want to educate us on a fandom drama, like take us through a timeline of some kind of drama or like pop culture thing that maybe we missed or we don't value as much as you think we should. But you want to keep it brief, keep it breezy, keep it fun. And usually like the ones at Taylor Swift, Allison, you can speak to this, like I was dying. They were amazing.
I did perform a role, and that's all I'll say about that if you weren't there, but I performed in a role. I think what was fun is there's sort of like two things happening with a PowerPoint party. It like takes a format that you might be used to from your job or going to school or something else, and it kind of breaks it and makes it fun. And I think all the presentations were amazing, but it worked really well when we were able to kind of like go at a fast clip through a topic and then have a bit of discussion. The way that you're going to be able to access that is we'll send you information about how to pitch your topic and then how to attend. I feel like this is kind of corny and feels like, maybe like pyramid scheme speak. Like I was just watching with my Ruthie doll and I really felt like I was participating. So however you want to be part of it, like you don't have to present to feel like you are on like the same playing field. Like it's fun kind of no matter what you're doing. And I think it also gives you a chance to meet other people who listen to this show or who are still kind of like in this fandom. So people were talking about popples the other day. Like you never really know what like folks are going to come up with. We are then taking a bit of like a U-turn, so to speak, and in line with our pivot to then talk about Nenea Mitchell, we are going to do Early Sunday Morning, which is the Pearl Harbor Diary of Amber Billows. we get, of all the recommendations, we get Dear America the most. So people always want us to
Yes.
cover Dear America. That's a Dear America book, definitely told from a certain perspective. We want to pair that with your ideas about Indigenous Hawaii. And so if you have recommendations for us, we're open to that. But we'd like to do a watch along where we all learn together about Hawaii pre-colonization, Hawaii through colonization, and look at Pearl Harbor from a totally different perspective. So if you have ideas, feel free to email us or DM us anywhere about that.
Absolutely. Any other content you want to share?
Just that we're really excited that we're going to be actually doing an episode on Meet Claudie. Like, I think we're really pretty excited about that. And we're also, I feel like we're all over the map, which is wonderful. In April, we're going to reread Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is actually not your memoir, but is a Judy Blume book.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. And I was telling you off air, I just gave a talk the other day where like an older woman just sort of said, I just reread Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And she was like, if anyone's wondering, it still holds up. And I was like, I don't doubt it. Like,
I was wondering.
You were wondering. Well, we'll get to find out for ourselves in April, which is super exciting. And also maybe watch the movie when it's coming out. Maybe have a PowerPoint party that month. Who knows? More details to come. But stay tuned for if you're interested in presenting on fandom dramas. If you have something you need to share with us, we'd love to hear from you. Or just join us at that party. We'll put out the application to present soon, and then give everyone information on how to attend sometime in February. So stay tuned for that. Now, Allison, what have you been interested in lately? Like, we're gathering here to cover so much ground with the Princess Diaries. Like, we're taking on all princess content, but like, what have you been interested in lately that we need to get into?
So we're here to talk about Megan Patricia. That's how I'm going to refer to her, Megan Patricia Cabot's book, because I can't get over that that is her real name. Princess Diaries from the year 2000. It just would not be in the spirit of this show, and we would be absolutely remiss to not talk about Prince Harry's Spare. And we're going to call it Prince Harry's Spare because that's what it says on the book.
That's true. And I love, first of all, that the cover of the book cuts off to as a kindness to him to cover his baldness.
Which is not alarming, which is a word that he uses to describe his brother. How were you sitting down when you learned that this would have been 800 pages, but it was trimmed to 400?
Yes, I was. And honestly, I would have read 800 pages of this book. Like, I don't know, like as someone who likes to read, when you catch a book and you're like, God, I once heard somebody say like the books I can't put down are like the affairs I don't have on my husband, which is like sort of concerning for that person. But I understand the attitude behind it of like when you're at work and you just were like, can I steal 5 minutes and like dip into this book? That I haven't felt that in a while with a book. And I had that twice in the past week, but like I had this with Harry's book. And I read it so quickly because I was like, I gotta, and the thing is, I thought I wouldn't enjoy it because so much of it was exerted out everywhere. Kind of thought I knew what to expect, but there was a lot in it that I did not expect. And I still really enjoyed it.
I think we're in this really fascinating moment. Like, if you're kind of like of, basically the same generation that we are, or kind of thinking about when we were younger, the question that was often asked was like Harry or Will, right? Like, if you for some reason had to pick between these two princes and that was your only choices in the world, like, should you be so lucky, right? Air quotes, who would you pick? And I think what's fascinating about like getting a glimpse into his life in the 90s and early 2000s, right up till the fall, and then thinking about the Princess Diaries, it's this like very old tradition of imagining what if I was the princess, right? Like, what if the shoe fit? What if the crown fit? What if I became a princess? Meghan Markle has totally disrupted that narrative by pointing out how horribly she was treated, how much she was subjected to racism. It was very weird for me to be reading Spare. And then I ended up reading this book for a variety of reasons over the course of like multiple weeks, which is extremely unusual. Usually I read our Patreon books like all in one sitting, and then I come back to them several times. Like this, I read over a period of time with Spare thrown in there. And that was extremely disorienting. Princess Diaries is like the dream or like the saga of you learn that you have always been a princess all along. And how are you going to tap into that? Spare is basically like, what if you're born the backup and it's a nightmare?
Ooh, It's kind of like the subtitle of this book should be like, "It's not what you think," or like, "We'll never be royal," or like, God only knows what like was workshopped as a potential subtitle. But this book is so incredibly sad. I think like that's what I walked away with about this book. And the part that really resonated with me was about grief. Like so much of this book is about grief and the real notion that the real feeling he had that Princess Diana wasn't dead. That like
Right.
until his early 20s, he genuinely believed that maybe she faked her own death and was going to send for him and for Will and say like, I'm hiding out somewhere. Like I had to get away from the media and the press, which sounded so like claustrophobic and oppressive, the role they had in all of their lives. And that just hit me as so incredibly sad, but also just so relatable to me. And like this idea that there was a line in the book and I can't remember it, but it was basically like, I thought I would feel it in my body if she had died, that there would be some kind
Yeah.
of sign.
What's fascinating though, too, I think there's been a lot of conversation about like, who is Harry doing this for? And I think the double meaning of spare. So he is considered the spare to the heir, right? That's like a famous English
Mm-hmm.
phrasing. But there's also this notion of he is sparing his children from the life he had. That's how I interpret the
Right.
title, that it's actually about him pivoting from being this sort of bonus child that could provide a kidney or like maybe ascend to the throne to actually sparing people he loves in a way that others chose not to do for him. Where this kind of connects in some ways with Princess Diaries and other stories, we do also, as a culture, have this kind of moment right now where we have, far worse disparities than they had during the French Revolution. And yet we have this kind of impulse or this push to feel bad for people with power, to feel bad
Mm-hmm.
for people with a lot of money, right? The description for Princess Diaries is that, she learns her father is the crown prince of Genovia. And a lot of this is treated as kind of a burden, which it is, but it's also power. And where I find Harry really fascinating is that he comes to understand himself best as a soldier when he has to give up that power and when he has to kind of surrender to authority that he finds meaningful. If you read that book, I would say most of it is about his journey to becoming a soldier and then learning what it means to be a civilian and a veteran. That's my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. I think that's why the photo on the back of the book is him as a child in a costume, and it's like learning who he is as a man, person, and as a soldier. If you don't want to read about his time in Afghanistan or his time learning how to like work certain equipment with the military, you're going to be disappointed. It's like half the book at least.
There's a lot on that. I think that it looms so large because, as you say, I think that's the only identity that he truly believes he forged for himself, that it wasn't like projected onto him. And I also think it's a kind of doing the work of explaining why the Invictus Games and why his work with veterans is so meaningful to him. And I think in many ways, like this book is about grief in a lot of different ways, but I think it's like grief over his parent, his mom passing, grief over the loss of this career that I think was his identity. Like he is no longer in military service. And as we saw around the Queen's funeral and everything else, like he was not allowed to wear his military uniform, but someone like Prince Andrew was. And so after you read this like quite exhaustive description of his life in the military, you can understand like how that was hard for him probably to navigate, even as you're saying, like he led this life of incredible privilege.
It raises the question, if you could be put in a position where you would have all the power and all the privilege and all the perks of being part of a monarchy, like would the crown fit, right? Like that's a story that goes
Mm,
back, to our childhoods. It's really funny, my niece was given all of the kinds of books that like modern parents in her particular like world wanted to buy her, which was like, anti-racist baby and all different kinds of like wonderful books about powerful women and people throughout history. And she loves a princess movie. Like she loves the bright
interesting.
colors. She loves the stories. Those are really fascinating to her. She loves princess stickers. And I'm not even trying to suggest that that's a human universal. There's something very compelling about this idea that by putting a single thing on, you are special. And
Mhm.
where Harry is such an intriguing figure, the whole point of the military is you come out and you look like everybody else. You put on
Mhm.
camouflage, you blend in with everybody else. And having this feeling of being almost like a secondary child, a child who isn't as necessary, trying to make your way into the world, and then putting that military uniform on and feeling like things make sense for you, it's really a very different trajectory than Mia in Princess Diaries, who's told you have to be beautiful to fit this role. For Harry, it's like everything finally makes sense when that all goes away.
Yeah, that is an interesting kind of trajectory, and you kind of wonder, like, how he truly is navigating losing the privilege that he had. In the book, it's sort of presented as like he's most upset about losing the security that they had to keep them safe, which totally makes sense with the very real threats that have been put on their lives. But it's kind of like, yeah, he likes being in the military, but he's also very privileged in the military. Like he gets like a fast track to be a helicopter pilot and all these other things. So yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting that he seems most comfortable in something that provides him some measure of anonymity or like sameness with everyone else. And Mia is sort of like freaked out by losing that. It all kind of like makes sense. Although I do want to get into this book because that to me is the most unbelievable part of this book,
Yes.
which I guess is like also learning like how they're in different like digital worlds and everything. Like at one point, Prince Harry says, up until recently, I had never ordered anything on the internet. I'd never been on Amazon. I didn't like all of these different things that I was like, wow, that's mind blowing to me that you never bought anything online. Like that was crazy.
My favorite, like, random learning from that book was that when Meghan Markle first saw where and how he was living, she remarked that he had a beanbag chair. And that was one of my favorite, like, moments of levity that I think probably had to be dragged out of him by his ghostwriter. But yeah, should we get into the year 2000, like, girl of the
Let's do
millennium?
it. Oh my God. Like we're going to a pre 11 9/11 world, pre Y2K. Like Y2K was still a threat on the horizon when this book came out. Like
Yes.
that's crazy to me.
So we are talking about the Princess Diaries, the original from the year 2000. I'll read just, very quick 3 to 4 sentence overview. Many people probably know this from the 2001 film, but the book, which is actually quite different, this is the summary. Mia Thermopolis is pretty sure there's nothing worse than being a 5'9", flat-chested freshman who also happens to be flunking algebra. Is she ever in for a surprise? First, mom announces that she's dating Mia's algebra teacher. Then, dad has to go and reveal that he is the crown prince of Genovia. And guess who still doesn't have a date for the cultural diversity dance? It's Mia. She's the one that doesn't have a
Damn.
date.
This book. Wow. I mean, first of all, it's impressive for Meg Cabot that this book came out in 2000 and the movie was already out in 2001. Like people were like, this is a hot concept. And to me, the best part of this book is the concept. Like the execution, I think if I had grown up with this book, I would have a stronger attachment to this. I grew up with the movie. I'd never read this book before.
I also grew up with the film, and I was mentioning off air that for book club this month, I read All American Girl, which had to have been written right around the same time as this. And if you've never read a Meg Cabot book, she does a lot of lists and a lot of kind of like side notes to make you feel like you're reading a teenager's diary. So you really feel like you're in a teenager's world, not that you're just reading their story. And in All American Girl, which puts a different like early tween or like teenager in an equally incredible situation. I found that book to just be like extremely compelling because it has a lot of like very interesting patriotic themes and also must have been written pre 9/11 but came out right after 9/11, which made me wonder about Meg Cabot's output and led me to her website where she has written over 50 books and she like she is cranking out more
Unreal.
than a book a year. Like not just of the years she's been alive, she is cranking out books constantly and wrote all of this material at the same time.
It is it is wild. I mean, her productivity is off the charts. Like, I have so much respect for I would love to know like what her schedule is. How is she doing this? But imagine having an idea as great as this one, which kind of inverts something like the little princess or whatever, it's like, in some ways, I think every kid has a moment where they're like, what if I was actually a princess? Especially like this is catnip to us, our generation, because we had already been hit with Anastasia. Like we'd already had this moment of like, but what if she's still alive? Like there's enough historical precedents of like princesses that were sent away or like living under, whatever, where it's like maybe I'm a royal. Like who knows? If you were met with this moment of somebody saying to you, I'm a prince, you're actually a princess, would you be like, thank God I've been waiting for someone to tell me that? Or would you be like, I don't want to hear this?
Am I a teenager or it's me now?
Teenager.
You know that it's my dream to be a first lady.
A first lady, but not a president.
A first lady, but not a president. Where this book kind of hits me in a place of like fascination is I love thinking about people like Queen Elizabeth II who have power and have roles but don't have jobs. Like I find that really interesting where first lady is not a job. First lady is a duty and an honor and a role. And that's kind of why I find this made up world of like the Christmas Prince and like the Genovia, like nonsense making in this book. I will say this, like I relate really hard to the Mia in the book far more than I do the Mia in the films because I just find it hard to like imagine that Anne Hathaway is average or ugly. Like that's not remotely a thing that I can actually like get my head around, even though that's what you're supposed to believe. If I was told that I would have like an honorary dignitary title, I would be all about it. But I would not want to be the prime minister of a country, for example.
So you would accept being princess, but not prime minister?
I would accept being a princess with the understanding that I think it's cool to have a role that has influence and power that isn't tied to a salary. I find that very interesting. I don't know that this will ever happen to me, but if I were in Mia's situation, this was also kind of like my peak younger awkward phase. I do think this would be very overwhelming. Where the film and the book depart in what I think is the most significant way for me, besides plot points, is setting this in early 2000s San Francisco versus setting this in New York. To me, that's what makes these characters two completely different people.
Interesting. Why?
To me, being kind of like a weird and interesting girl in like Brooklyn or Brooklyn adjacent, and like the descriptions we get of her artist mother, right? And her kind of, so also in the book, her father is absent, but then around. In the film, her father has passed on and he's not present. There was something in watching the film now as an adult, all of the kind of like quirks that she and her best friend have, all I could see was money, right? Like seeing them going to this like very expensive school in San Francisco, I just like couldn't like suspend my disbelief. I was like, you are just very rich people. Like none of this should be a shock. You're like hanging out at a consulate. It felt really different in the book to me.
Yeah, I don't
like
really know
that
if
she
it's
was
like
shocked
because they changed the city. It's more, I think, because of the genre. Like, I think having to physically see images of their school kind of suspends your belief in like the humility of her pre-princess lifestyle. Whereas, like in the book, it's like, well, this is like left up to my imagination. But technically, like this could have been Gossip Girl. Like the circle that she's in the book in New York could also be the same circle that exists in like the universe of Gossip Girl in the city as well with that much wealth. I want to get into the book because of the thing you just said about like what is believable and what's not.
Yeah.
And I want to take care in doing this because I understand. I've heard from so many people this week who are like, you cannot come for the Princess Diaries books because they're so important to me. And I totally get that. Like, if this, I am sad for younger me that I did not have these books because as a middle child who like would have loved to have been a secret princess, and I'm also a Leo, like it's probably for my own safety, like for the best. I did not have these books. Like it would have been too much for me, but I totally get the appeal of these books. I absolutely love the premise. And I think something I'm noticing about myself reading things, even that I did love as a teen, is that I find it hard to navigate voices of teens, girls, or boys, or anyone that I find somewhat like difficult to take maturity wise. And I found that to be a struggle with the voice of Mia in the books. I also found it impossible to believe that she didn't know her dad was a prince.
Yeah, and I think part of how that's handled very differently between the two, right? Like there's such a buildup in the film, and this is what was most apparent to me. There's such a buildup in the film to the very end when she chooses to become a diarist because of a note and a thing left behind by her father. The Mia that we get in the book is a diarist and a note taker and a list maker all along. And we're in her world because of what she chooses to record and how she chooses to share that with us in like the voice created by Meg Cabot. This idea that you wouldn't know that you had this like relationship to this country, that's kind of what makes it funny because like what is this country? We learn a little bit more in the book
Right.
about its actual setup and that her father is like brilliant in the way that he has chosen to manage it. Putting Julie Andrews as the grandmother in the film is a very good choice because that could just be a horrifically unlikable character. I was struggling after having finished the film to go back into the book to actually read the rest of it, to continue hating the grandmother as Mia does in the book because all I could picture was Julie Andrews. And the grandmother
Yeah.
does actually have a lot of toxic qualities and does a lot of things that are questionable, if not cruel. I think this plays into that teenage fantasy of like, with 2 hours and a lot of money, I could look really completely different and I could change my life. And I think that's something that people either like are afraid of or fantasize about, but that's like a premise of a lot of teen movies. This book and reading All American Girl also made me very sad because I think you maybe wouldn't advocate writing this book today because there is a message of like she wasn't enough the way that she was, and the only person who maybe really saw her as she was her best friend also didn't really find her enough. And so there's some
Yeah.
complicated messages in this book about your intellect, your physical beauty. It's like who actually sits this person down and says like you're going to need a strong constitution inside to handle this role. And I want you to feel really good about yourself. And the whole premise is like, you're not enough as you are, and you need to be fixed. I'm not coming
Well,
for this book. I'm saying that's how I read it as an adult.
yeah, I mean, I think, like, also I think in the book, she actually does a better job of saying, like, "This is who I am, and I'm not gonna compromise."
Yes.
So, I think, like, she actually does have a very strong sense of herself, like, which all credit to her mom for giving her that. And I think, like, a major asset of the book is, like, the fact that she's a diarist from the jump. Like, you see her navigating how she feels about things and, like, how she feels about herself and how people are treating her in real time. Like, to the point that at one point when the school, like, jerk jock guy invites her on a date, and it's clearly, like, because he now knows she's a princess at Tavern on the Green, she's, like, in the bathroom writing in her diary. She's like, "I left him at the table, he's drunk, I'm here in the bathroom writing," and I'm like, "Whoa, this is, like, the live correspondent reporting I need from a diarist." But it's also kind of like there's a lot of traumatic stuff in both things, or just things that, like you're saying, make you sad, where it's like the best friend is very happy for her when her personal wins benefit her. Like,
Yeah.
that's the only time she can be happy for her, which is not healthy friendship. And her parents, like, I kind of kept thinking, like, why did dad have to die in the movie? And I sort of like, as opposed to the book where he has testicular cancer, and the argument is like he never brought up that she was a princess or that he's a prince because he assumed he was going to have legitimate heirs with someone else, which is also rude. And now that he knows he can't, he's coming to her at the plaza where he always stays, and that never rings any bells for her, and is like, "Hey girl, daddy can't have any more babies, so you're my heir now. I'm a prince." And so first she freaks out when she's told he's a prince.
Yes.
And she never connects that his last name is the same last name as the royal family in a country we are told she visits every summer.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
She has a very different relationship to Genovia in the book, and she's both more informed and like also more clueless, I think, at the same time. Like, you can
Yeah.
really get on board in the film with the fact that she's never met her father. Her mother has raised her in a kind of bubble in this artsy area in San Francisco. She's a very, like, certain perspective on life. And so she just has no clue. That is a little bit like harder to kind of get your head around in the book in some ways. There's also something that's like very 90s, early 2000s about the way that she and her friend want to be activists. And in the book, she has an opportunity to get paid for her time while she learns how to be a princess. And she wants all of that money to go to Greenpeace, which is like very funny and like very 90s, early
Very of its
2000s.
time. Yes.
There's also a cause that her friend Lily wants her to take up that also feels very of a moment. And again, I'm not sure that you would write it this way today, which is that a local shop owner gives a discount to only certain kinds of patrons, basically minorities in the community. And her very privileged friend is upset and wants people to boycott. And you kind of read that from 20 plus years back, and it's like, none of this is like maybe doing what you think it's doing.
Yeah. Well, it's bizarre because like in a week when there's like 2 mass shootings victimizing Asian Americans, it's like basically she's protesting because an Asian market will only give discounts to other Asian customers. And so she's like, this is wrong. And it's like, okay, that's not doing, like you're saying, that's not doing what you think it's doing. And you kind of need to pump your brakes. But instead she's like going all in on that and making it like a join or die situation with like everyone else at the school, including Mia. And that didn't I don't think Meg would do that today, is my guess.
I don't think she would either. And you also learned that Lily is paying out of pocket $200 to produce her local television show, which I couldn't even imagine. Like, imagine if to get this podcast off the ground, we were paying $200 per episode now, like in today's dollars, even with like Biden bucks, the way things are. No. But there is a very specific kind of like optimism that she and her friend have that outside of that misguided protest, I do appreciate, because I like that they have this energy around how they're going to get to go to college and how they're going to pay and like get a job with Greenpeace. There's also a very different kind of romantic interest in this book where you see her developing feelings for Lily's brother Michael. And I think some of the unsung, like funny characters of this book, like Lily and Michael's parents are psychiatrists and they have a dog named Pavlov, which is hilarious. Like, I think there's a lot of like subtlety to Meg Cabot's humor that I really liked in the book.
Yeah, I agree. And I liked all the little touches of things that remind you of life before. Like, you have to stop and think, like, okay, this is before Google existed. So she wasn't like Googling Genovia. She wasn't
True.
Googling her dad. Like, this is before like a lot of the things that we take for granted in terms of like social media existing. Like, this is before all of that. But they did have AIM, and she doesn't call it that, but it's like there are times when she's having like sidebar combos with Michael, and it's all playing out on AIM, and it's like that more than anything else viscerally took me back to like late 90s life when that is like my main mode of communication. Like, even now, if I'm texting with someone at night and I'm at home, I pull out my laptop if I'm watching TV and I'm like literally typing to you on a keyboard because in my head it's like that makes me feel safe. Like, I want to pretend I'm on AIM talking to you. And so that was really great. But I also think like Grandmere is she is not a nice lady in this book. And like she avowedly is like she's chain smoking. She's calling out Mia's appearance in ways that are really hurtful and like a lot of body shaming. And it's a really like wild take to make the queen mean. And I sort of wonder like why. I mean, in the Disney of it all, I'm sure that's why they pivoted to like there's no way. I think Julie Andrews would have loved to have played it that way and play against type. But I can understand why they changed that. But I also think they made dad in IMDb, they said they killed dad off in the movie because testicular cancer was considered too adult for the kid audience.
Oh, that's interesting. Like the paternity issue.
The paternity issue. They didn't want to get into the fact that like and also I think it's interesting that in the book it's very clear that her teacher, aka her mom's boyfriend, is like staying over. And it's implied like
Yes.
they had sex and whatever and they're not married and like obviously that's fine, but Disney just like completely deleted that as well from the movie.
I think Disney, much like Valerie Tripp, prefers an absentee or dead parent over anything else.
Yes.
Like they prefer like a semi-orphan or like full orphan situation. I think that adds to the princess intrigue. It also creates moments of bonding between the grandmother and Mia, where the grandmother is able to explain on her terms how her father was versus having to make excuses for how her father is. Like multiple people have
Mm.
basically chosen in the book to not be part of Mia's life. Like she's growing up, her
Yes.
childhood is basically over. And at some point, her parents made a decision, very parent trap, to basically say, we will have the world's worst custody arrangement. You will
Right.
struggle because you are an artist and a single mother, and we will act like this did not happen. And you really don't get a lot of like resentment from Mia or any kind of like hurt feelings. That's just like a part of her life in the book. I talked about this when I was thinking about All American Girl, written in the same time, loved it a lot. I really appreciate about Meg Cabot the way little things and big things collide when you're a teenager. And even when you're an adult and you're having a bad day and like you stub your toe or something, like you ran out of cereal, like the littlest thing happens and you're just, everything is so much worse. And your hormones are raging and you're trying to figure out, like, am I a princess? Am I going to this dance? Will I have a date? I like that Meg Cabot takes teenage problems seriously,
Hmm.
and I think
Yeah.
that's why this resonated with so many people. It's not condescending. You feel like you're in a teenager's point of view. And really, as an adult, like I can appreciate it would be very complicated to be failing a subject and have your mother be dating the teacher of that subject. That is not a good
Absolutely
combination.
not. I was just thinking about the awkwardness of like, I think that's a really great point, first of all. And I think she does capture the teenage point of view really, really well. And I think possibly the thing that put me off this book at first was maybe like it resonated, it hit a little too close to home about probably how I sounded as a teen. And it does carry you back to that time though, when like everything was high stakes. Like, not only am I failing algebra, but also like, do I have a pimple? Do I have a date to the cultural diversity dance? And she does very much like, this is my nightmare to have had to see a teacher outside school and like how to navigate that. And this is sort of like the worst possible version of that. But it did take me back to like being in high school and I would run into like teachers outside school and it is really awkward. And the best time ever, worst actually time ever, was my brother Rick. Like we saw a teacher who was having a baby and she had her baby, which I knew. And Rick saw her and was like, "Oh my god, like, when are you due?" And it was like, I wanted to, like, leave my body, but I had to be there through that, and she was very gracious, but I was like, "Oh my god, this is why no one should interact as teens with teachers, like, unless you absolutely have to for teacher protection."
Also thinking about like what her life is going to look like past this book, the Disney film, it rises and falls on her deciding whether she's going to actually take on this role or whether the line is going to move to these like other kind of like distant people of nobility. And this is very different. This is far more rooted in a real teenage world where Mia wants to have a date. She wants to have a good time at the cultural diversity dance. A part of this book that actually made me laugh out loud is she has this growing crush and relationship with Michael. And Michael is in computer club. And Michael is like, like any other teenager, but he wants at the diversity event to have the internet be recognized as a culture and for them to have their own
Love
table.
it.
And the rest of the computer club ends up boycotting, but he attends. And thankfully he does, because then he's able to dance with Mia. I really liked the rootedness in reality that the book had versus in the film. It's like she has this love interest, she has so much more drama. Everyone in that film looked like an adult to me, and I could picture awkward freshman, sophomore Mia Thermopolis like needing a date to this, and like this man she's sort of interested in being torn over whether the internet deserves a table at the diversity dance. Like that's amazing. That's
It's
funny.
iconic. It's iconic. It's like nerdcore. It's like normcore. I love it so much. And I agree. Like I have, so there's like a well-known thing of like when Anne Hathaway auditioned for this movie, she fell out of her chair. And that's basically when she got cast because Gary Marshall was like, "Oh my God, like she's so adorable," like whatever. Part of me is like, is there a conspiracy out there or am I just launching it? Like, did she fall out of the chair on purpose?
Someone commented while we were watching the film together that Anne Hathaway's physical comedy in the film is absolutely top shelf. And I totally agree with that. The scenes where she is learning how to be a princess. I want to call attention to the fact that This Is Us would probably not have happened without this film. Mandy Moore got interviewed about like why she chose to pivot to acting in the early 2000s. And I want to share with you like what I learned in this article.
Please.
Okay. So she's talking about how like she like wants to be a singer, she wants to be involved in rock and roll, but she also like wants to be able to do other things. And she talks about how she had just done, quote, a rock version of Candy with a full band on Mad TV. I love seeing the faces in the audiences. They were stunned. You could hear the gas. That's just not me at 16. That was me at 16. That's not part of me at 25. You always feel the pressure, but I don't feel the need, and it takes away from the music. People staring like that might be right for Britney, Christina, and Mariah, but not me. She's like trying to make this pivot to like, I'm an actor, I'm complex.
Okay.
And she's like, and I'm a fan of Julie Andrews. She's like, don't think of me as a one note. She's like, I'm not just a live performer. I'm a deeply complex woman. I didn't know what to make of all of this, but I was like, wow, like October 2000, this was the news.
I guess. I mean, it's interesting because like so many of the peers that she notes as like, I'm not like them, all of them were trying to do that. Like there was a time when all of them were like, I'm a multi-hyphenate, like don't get attached. And part of it's because they came from the Mickey Mouse Club. I mean, she didn't, but like the idea of like being an actor performer, like literally was how a lot of them came up. So it's interesting that Mandy was like, I'm not like these other girls who only sing. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think she was trying. I think what was hard for her was that she never got the promo or support of like a Britney or Christina in the music industry. And I think she had to make her own space. And I actually think she's done an incredible job. Like, I think her career is fascinating to me, and Candy is still an amazing song. So it's like she's won.
She was saying like she's interested in dabbling with rock. She's interested in acting. And like part of what she was also responding to is like the turn that Britney and Christina were making towards like what she describes as more like stripping in their videos. And she was like, I'm doing something a little bit different. There's also something kind of like else that's coming out in this interview, which is she says, I've met a lot of people, but she notes she almost never spends time with people her own age. And she was 16.
Yeah.
So she looks like, I was watching this and I was like, this is like really making me suspend my disbelief. She's actually 16. She's only a few years older than us when she films this. I was stunned to see that Anne Hathaway was 18 in that film. Like to me, she looks 25.
She looks older. Yeah.
Neither here nor there. I loved watching the film. I loved reading this book. Will I be reading more Meg Cabot? I'm not sure. It's not a no.
I see where I landed was where, and I also want to get into like the training that we get laid out in this book on how to be a princess that she is subjected to, because the most stunning thing to me is like, I thought in the Princess Diaries, I would learn how to be a princess. Maybe that was a wrong expectation. Maybe that's my Leoness coming out where I'm like, what if I get called? I want to know. And it's like the evil queen mom, grandma is like, you have to write an essay about the 10 women you most admire. And she hits her with like Madonna, Hillary Clinton, my mom, like Peekaboo Street, icons of the 90s. And she's learning how to sit and to curtsy, which is also kind of like carried over into the film. And then by the end, when it finally comes out that she's a princess and like the school is mobbed by the press and Lily is like yelling at her in a study hall, presumably Michael's trying to help her pass algebra. And at a certain point, she's like, Lily's like, you don't even know anything about Genovia. Like, you don't even know. And like, it's a capitalist country and like, you're part of the problem. And it's like, this is not helpful content. Michael steps in and gives like literally a 5-paragraph essay verbally that's like, here's why Genovia matters and her dad is doing a good job. And I'm like, this man, and Mia says this to herself, why does this man understand more about my country than I do? Why doesn't my training cover this? And it's like, powerful question. Why isn't anybody telling you anything that would actually be useful in being a princess?
Well, I think also the pressure is not the same in the book, right? Like the grandmother is basically like, I'm not the bloodline in the film. You're the bloodline. This is go time. It's you or it's nobody. And in the book, the situation is quite different. Like you have a sense that she's going to be able to ease into certain kinds of things. Totally agree. She needed more than like a basic primer on like what it would actually mean to rule. Once again, the dad is not an effective parent. Like the dad is not a good parent. The dad is not really present in any kind of meaningful way. This book is very funny. Like when she first has encounters with the press, she's like, they almost got me when they asked me about the meat industry. She's like, I will speak on the meat industry.
I will speak on that.
Mia captures that feeling of 14 to 17, or for some people, like, lasts a lifetime, thinking you know everything at 18, thinking you know nothing at 22. Like she pivots back and forth between that, where she's like, am I the smartest person on the planet or do I know nothing? And that is something I think Cabot does like exceptionally better than other books I've read. And I was like, that is why I would maybe consider like spending more time with her. Like that is something I really like about that teenage experience.
Yeah, and like I think I'm interested to hear like I don't know if I'll finish this series, but I am interested to know where it goes and like how she develops this story, but I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll have to see if I can like stay with this, but I know it diverges quite a bit from the sequel, the movie and all of that, but I also think it's just like this is such a book of its time. Like even it was crazy for us to be reading this right after we both read Spare because Princess Diana is so much in this book. Like one of my favorite quotes from the book is like, how come nice people like Princess Diana get killed in car wrecks, but mean people like Lana never do? And it's like, whoa, that's such a teenage thought. Like, even as she herself is like, I know that's like wrong to think, but it's like when you're just like vulnerable and you're like feeling feelings, sometimes your head goes there and you're like, that's not a great thought. Then Princess Diana is one of her 10 admirable women. And then later on, like after the press is sieging the school, the teacher tries to diffuse the tension in class by trying to mediate a debate that's popped up about who is responsible for Princess Diana's death. And it's like, this is a lot. Everyone was like, the media, and like screaming at the media out the window, which I'm like, this is so real and like exactly what Prince Harry was talking about. And then the teacher's like, but what if the driver was drunk? What if it wasn't the media? And I'm like, oh my God, were you paid by the Post? Like, who are you? Like, what is this?
There are so many moments in this book where you are just kind of thrown random cultural curveballs. For example, Lily has ranked as number 9, Dr. Quinn, medicine woman's boyfriend, as like the hottest man alive.
Oh my God.
We also have Leonardo in Titanic ranked as number 6. Mia says as if, that's so 1998. And like that entire sentence, it made me laugh because I saw this conversation happening on TikTok where Black creators were like encouraging white women to like stop, adapting or appropriating, African American vernacular speak, and basically saying like, go back to your roots. Like go back to when like white women like had a distinctive culture and like put their hand up and like watched men play pogs, and it was like you have a culture. Like this book is that culture. It's like you have a culture and like there are like places for you to access that culture and you don't need to take someone else's. I was thinking that reading this book, like this is the culture. Like this is the place. This is the culture. I have to say, like, if you're looking for a novel to read that will help you kind of like pass a weekend or like feel sort of pleasant, this is it, right? Like, I think this is a perfect place for us to land in between, like, going towards a book about the early internet. Pearl Harbor is obviously a separate situation, but like, you can't really go wrong with this book.
Yes, that's true. I think it was a fun read. It brought me back in time to a time before like the internet was so all encompassing and allowed for plot lines like this where you're like, genuinely didn't know my dad was a prince. And then there's like also a lag when she's like, so wait a minute, it's not immediate that she's like, so that means I'm a princess. Like her dad has to spell that out for her. And that really made me laugh. And I just think it's like, I love reading YA or teen books because of just how sincere and strong the feelings are. And reading something that's framed as a diary is also, I think, so earnest and so sincere. And so I think if you were a teen during this time, you will love this book because the references will hit you so hard. And even just reading like a reference to a VCR, I was like, wow, like I remember that, and being so jealous of people who knew how to tape things. I never figured it out.
This may be the first time that we have chosen to revisit modern high school. And I think that also raises a set of questions, primarily like I learn a lot about a person by knowing whether they would go back to high school if they could. I have a recurring nightmare that I am still in high school. My high school was not that bad. It's just like not a period in my life that I would choose to return to. Like the idea of sitting in a chair with a group of specialists giving me a makeover would have caused me to break down. Like that would not have been cause for celebration. So I think she handles all of this extremely well, like all things considered. Shout out to Mia.
Shout out to Mia. The makeover scene always kills me because it takes me back to like when my brother got married in Ireland. His wife is a very sweet person, but she was like, "Oh, don't worry, I've got like a makeup person coming and she's going to do everyone's makeup." And I was like, "No, that's okay. I don't need that, but thank you. I'm not a makeup person, I should say. I admire it, but I don't really have any skills or interest." And she was like, "No, no, no, everyone is doing this." And you had to go in one by one. And she came in and she almost like I was like international in more ways. And when she was like, she's like from another country where people don't enjoy makeup. So like just don't do a lot. And the girl was like, no problem. She was like, make her look natural. And she was like, no problem. And it took over a half hour for me to appear, and I'm putting this in air quotes, natural. And the whole time I was so scared about what I was going to look like because I couldn't see the mirror. And all this woman said to me, who was Irish, was that she loved America because it's the place where her favorite city was located. And I was like, oh, what's your favorite city in the US? And she was like, it's obviously Orlando. And I was like, oh God, what's going to happen to me? I sent like a crisis photo to Anna at one point. My mom and Anna were out having breakfast. I was like, why am I not at that?
You were at Glam.
I just was like, why did it take a half hour for me to look natural? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, the makeover didn't empower me. I felt like judged.
I think that's also a product of like a certain kind of messaging from another time. And thinking of shows like What Not to Wear, where it was like, you are a flawed person who is doing things incorrectly. And other shows kind of saying like, what would make you feel really good? Like those are two fundamentally different approaches. And I think one of the aspects that still kind of like sticks out about this book is she goes through a major change and she has to renegotiate what it looks like when she looks in the mirror, how she's interacting with people, her closest friendships, like her crushes, her parents, like all of these things are going on. And there is an element, like obviously there's a lot of privilege in this book, but there's also some elements of resilience that she figures out how she's going to get through it. And I like that this wasn't a simple book of like, adults are friends or adults are not allies. Like adults were really complicated in this book. I also want to shout out to the person who made a website all about this author's relationship with, quote, financial writer and poet Benjamin Ignatz. They got married on April Fool's Day, and someone made a timeline of like their relationship that defies belief. They eloped in Italy. Shout out to them.
Who, that person? Like, tell me more about what makes this website so iconic.
Shout out to the timeline. Shout out to the fact that she is a cat owner. She apparently blogs often about some of her cats. I was trying to find out some information about this husband, and guess what? Like, it doesn't exist. Like, he is like the Prince of Genovia. It's like, it doesn't matter. He probably sits between their houses in Key West, Bloomington, Florida, and New York, also in France. He probably sits there and he like counts the money and he's like, thank you, Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway also, have to say, is very gracious about the fame that has come with this. I think she knows where her biscuit is buttered. And she's like, thank you to the Princess Diaries fans. Like, you made me.
Well, the third one is coming. She just announced that at Sundance. Although I am very sad that Julie Andrews may not take part because I think she might be too old now. She said something to that effect. But I'm a huge
okay, don't cancel me. I thought she died. I'm being completely serious. When
Allison,
we were getting ready for the watch along, I was like, I better Google when she died because I don't want to misspeak. And I was like, oh my God, congrats. No, she's with us. I wasn't aware. I'm just going to be completely honest.
I'm so happy. Like, we're living in a time of like greatness for certain octogenarian entertainers. Like, I did just see on the Sunday morning show that Jane Fonda, Sally Field, Lily Tomlin, and Rita Moreno are going to be in 80s for Brady or whatever that movie is. That sounds like it will be bad, but I will be there opening day, like if I can. And Dolly wrote a song for it. So of course I have to take this in that she's doing with Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's and Gloria Estefan. Like none of these collabs make sense, but I'm embracing it. And as long as like, I'm just really happy for Julie Andrews that like also Carol Burnett is still alive because I know like they're BFFs, but you know, I will say, I said this on the watch along, her memoirs are very good. Julie Andrews' memoirs are very good. And she writes about making this movie. And it seems like it was genuinely a sweet experience for everyone involved. And a star-making turn for Anne Hathaway, who I think is like has outlived now like the cringeness of the way people used to talk about her for being earnest when actually that's not something to neg someone for. But I don't know. I think she's genuinely very good. Like I think she's gone on to make good things, and I hope she makes Princess Diaries 3. I don't know what it'll be about, but
Well, there are at least 9 of these books. I think there are actually even more than that. Maybe there will be a follow-up to Spare. Like, maybe we'll keep getting more of maybe he'll write a book called Tyre. I don't know, but there really is, like, that's a good idea. That's a very good
wow.
idea. Anyway, I have enjoyed my time with Meg Cabot very much. I always look forward to the things that you all tell us to do. The watch alongs and everything else, they are very fun when you participate. I also just love when people shoot us a message of like, hey, I would like you to cover this or talk about that. I find that really helpful. We want to make content that you are interested in. Maybe that's a deep dive into the Popples. I don't know.
I don't understand what that is, and I refuse to look it up, but I'm happy for everyone who's discussing that and enjoying that. Yeah, I mean, I love like everyone's feedback. I love talking to people in the Discord. I was telling you off air, I just saw The Six, the musical, which I think you have also
Yes,
seen.
I have.
And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I loved being able to pop into the Discord to the theater channel and like say, like, has anyone here seen this? Because when you see something you really love and you're like, oh, I'm just like so lit up by this. I'd love to talk about it with other people. And it's such a joy. It's such a source of like fun conversation.
We love to connect with you, Mary. If people want to find you or if they want to say, like, hey, like your socio-political analysis of Genovia was way off base, like,
I'm open to it. And look, if you want to connect with me and tell me why I should read all the books, like I'm open to that too, because someone did tell me that she ends up marrying Michael in the books, and I'm very intrigued. And I
okay.
know that doesn't happen in the movie, the sequel, but you can contact me on Instagram at Mimi Mahoney, and I'm very happy always to hear from everyone. Also, if you want to talk about Mandy Moore's music, like I'm a huge Mandy Moore fan, and her last album was very good. Got me through the early pandemic. So feel free to contact me about anything. And Allison, if people want to chat with you, where should they find you?
Yeah, I'm at Miracles Happen. No, I'm at Allison Horrocks on Twitter and Instagram. And really easy to find us if you go on our website. You can also always feel free to DM us on the Patreon. If there's something you feel like you're missing or you're like not getting information, I'll be real, like I'm a patron of other things. And sometimes I feel like, where can I find the information for what is going on? Right. Like we are sort of
Yeah,
like our own, I don't want to say we're our own Genovia, but it's like you all have
kinda.
made this like a great place, like probably comparable population wise. So I am always happy to like answer a question or like you feel free to reach out to us. But yeah, I'm can't wait for the next month and like what all else we have happening.
Yeah, and stay tuned because we're gonna put out an application. I'll do that like soon and send that to you for our next PowerPoint party on fandom dramas. So if you have heard about fandom dramas and there's a favorite storyline or a favorite event that you want to share with us and relive with us, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you just want to come and hang out with us and hear from other people, it is a really fun event. So stay tuned for information very soon about that. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for helping us continue this community. We so appreciate all of you, and we will see you on our next episode.